on the Truth and Reconciliation model and kind of the next steps involved in that. I hope to have a robust discussion with respect to that. Also, some discussion about the recent recommendation on the officer peer intervention program. And that was also in the most recent COCO report. So kind of wanted to discuss any new updates with respect to that. I know there's still some time for the mayor and the police chief to get back to us on that recommendation, but I do think it's very important in light of, you know, all the events that have been happening that you know, is moving forward. In the meantime, though, let's go around the virtual room and introduce ourselves. My name is Vadim Mazursky, PCCEP secretary, and nice to meet you all. I live in Southwest Portland. Let's say Anne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Campbell, PCCEP member. I'm happy to be here with you all today. And since we're talking about where we live, I live in Southwest Portland too.
And Marcia.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm having a snack because it's been a really long day. Marcia Perez, and I'm the chair of the Racial Equity Subcommittee, and I live in Northeast Portland.
Claudia.
Hi, everyone. I am Claudia Claudio, and I am the project assistant for Portland, or sorry, for PCCEP, and I live in Northwest Portland.
Next on the list is Theo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Theo Lada. I'm a PCCEP staff, one of the PCCEP staff, and I've lived in Northwest for a while. I've been spending a lot of time at my dad's house, who just moved here from Los Angeles, and he lives in Southeast Portland. So I'm hanging out over here a lot.
Nice. Judith.
Hi, everyone. I'm having a snack as well. Long day. Thank you. I'm Judith Mowry. I am the Senior Policy Advisor at the Office of Equity and Human Rights and one of the members of the staff for PCCEP, and I live in Southeast.
And then Mr. Handelman.
Hi, this is Dan Handelman with Portland Cop Watch. I use he, him pronouns.
Welcome, Mr. Handelman. Allison.
Hi, my name is Allison Osborne. I live in Northeast Portland. I've been tangentially involved with these issues since 1991 with Rodney King, and James Chassie was a friend of mine. So that's how I come here.
Looking forward to hearing your input, Allison. Anne Brayfield. And Anne, you're on mute if you're speaking right now. Okay, we'll cycle back to Anne in a minute, just in case. Barb?
Hi, y'all. I'm Barb Rainish. I'm a citizen. I'm an applicant, and I live in Inner Southeast. And I use she, her pronouns. I think that's it.
Thanks, Barb. And Barbara Baczynski?
Barbara Boshinsky. Portland Cop Watch, she, her. I live in North Portland. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you, Barbara. Kirsten.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Fredrickson. I am a community member with Mental Illness First, and I also have experience as a peer specialist and an advocate for people in the mental health system.
Okay, nice to have you here. What is Mental Illness First? I'm not familiar with that.
What?
Did you mention Mental Illness First? Was that?
No, I said I'm a community member with Mental Illness First.
Oh.
And then
I thought that was an organization. Sorry about that.
Sounds cool though. Yeah, right.
It does. It does. And Stephen Brock.
Hi, I'm Stephen Brock. I'm a community member, still trying to get my bearings here, learning about PCCEP and trying to find a way to get involved and be useful.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brock. Looking forward to hearing from you as well. Okay, so the first topic of discussion is the Truth and Reconciliation model. Basically, there's not been a lot of different Truth and Reconciliation committees in the United States, but based on the recommendations of the 21st Century Policing, there was a group of individuals and organizations that came together to discuss what such a model would look like. And there certainly has been, over time, an acknowledgement that that kind of model can help both the police, the Bureau, as well as citizens come together and understand the history of racism and the ramifications on the present. And so I wanted to kind of discuss what the different models might look like, and also provide some sort of timelines that, based on our discussions today, that we can go forward with the Police Bureau and get their involvement and actually move forward this this initiative. The Police Bureau in the past has agreed to have a committee that would sort of lay the foundation work for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That committee, to my knowledge, has not formed yet, so that I would think would be the first step. Initially, the model was discussed about a year ago, so I think it's about time that the committee meet and we have members of that committee actually appointed and go forward with the discussion. So before we kind of begin with that.
Can I add something?
Yes, go ahead, Ann.
Also, thank you everyone for being here today. I also wanted to take a moment to just kind of be with where we are in our society, in our community right now, and all that's going on. And we at PCCEP are here to listen to the community and move forward on issues that they want to see happen in relation to the mayor and the police. And this being a part of it, I just want to ask for feedback. Vadim and I want to have feedback that this is still a priority. We know it's a priority for our community, but we want to make sure that it's a priority right now to kind of move forward on this work. We do know that it's a 3-year plan. The TAC committee, I believe it's called TAC committee, that the Portland Police has agreed to participate in. And I think, Vadim, correct me if I'm wrong, are we 1 year into that agreement, of the 3-year agreement?
Roughly speaking.
So it does give us an opportunity to touch base with the Police Bureau to see where we are on that, and to keep the movement going forward in terms of creating that committee and looking at different, as Vadim said, looking at different models of truth and reconciliation and what that may look like for us in our city. So I just wanted to put that out there as well.
Okay, I think that would be a good point to kind of open it up to the community. I don't know to what extent everybody on here has looked into the Truth and Reconciliation model. Certainly I've heard from Mr. Handelman in the past about that, but in light of recent events, do you think that this is still something that, to address Ann's point, that is still a priority that PCCEP and the Settlement Agreement and Policy Committee should pursue in the near term? Anybody have any feedback on that? I saw Barbara raise her hand. Or maybe not.
I was just saying I don't know.
Okay.
And that is kind of what we want to hear. We want to hear from people. Is this something that they want us to move on right now or not?
This is Ann Brayfield, and yes, I think it continues to be pertinent, and it seems to me that it might also be helpful in this moment if the community, PCCEP and so on, could see some movement from the police. I mean, a year is a long time to be sitting on this, along with other things that they've tended to sit on. And I think this would be trust building. I think it would be good faith. And so I know that PCCEP has more than enough on the plate, but I think somehow getting this back to the whomever the police are working on this, they need to move. And I think there are people that work there, that are involved there, that aren't out on the street and you know, over you know, work perhaps with every day. But I think that there are people that sit places that could be working on this, and I think it's important.
Thank you. I know that that PCCEP put forth a recommendation to accelerate the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the previous police chief, Vadim helped me on this, Chief Outlaw agreed to that process, but we are unclear as to where the police bureau is at this time. And we are hoping that some members would be here today. And we could maybe get some information about that, but also just get an understanding from everyone present as to what they feel about it.
This is Allison. I'll just say I think it's important, and I just went to the website real quickly. Is there something where we can easily see what's already been done or worked on in regards to this?
The recommendation from PCCEP is on the website. If you go to recommendations, they're unfortunately not in chronological order. It was passed in about June, but it says the Truth and Reconciliation model there, and that outlines kind of the broad framework for going forward. But there's nothing on the police force that has anything with response to that yet.
I'll just add that I was in Disability Power PDX last year, and we got to talk in front of the city council and the mayor, and Ted Wheeler expressed real interest in making that happen, and that was my focus, and he seemed very supportive and genuine. I don't know if there's ways to navigate there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. And if you look on our website, the title of the recommendation is Accelerating a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And within that document, it cites a variety of sites that have links for further information about models that we could consider. And I think that would be very helpful in that conversation as well.
Cool.
And so just, oh, is there anybody else? Barb?
Yeah, me. I can't let this go by without saying something. It's already been started. I think it's really important to follow through. I don't know why somebody from PCCEP hasn't pulled the chief aside and asked him about it, or one of the assistants chiefs. And it was a good recommendation. And it seems like that's the place to start. And then my other question is anybody on PCCEP also on that other commission or committee or whatever they're calling it, etc.? That's my question.
And that kind of leads to one of our first topics is, you know, is the committee necessary in order to move this forward, and who should maybe comprise of the committee. These are all going to be recommendations that will be brought forward to the chief and as well as to the mayor and how to move forward. So the initial first step would be, is there a need for a committee and who should comprise of that committee? And then just generally speaking, we'll have a roundtable discussion about the truth and reconciliation models and the need for that as a whole. I'll try to kind of outline a broad framework for that, but would love to hear input. So, obviously it started, this has started within the Settlement Agreement Policy Committee, but it needs a lot of input from various communities in order for it to have traction. So do you all think that within the Police Bureau we should form a committee, or they should form a committee bringing in various stakeholders in order to provide input on what that sort of entity would look like, what that sort of commission will look like, and the needs of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission? Or do you think that it should somehow stay within PCCEP and get more people involved within PCCEP? Any general thoughts on that?
I wanted to interject real quickly. I was just reading from the chat, Judith's comment that Mary Claire is from the Portland Police Bureau is doing the research, and she is the person that's responsible for the that committee at the Portland Police Bureau. So we can reach out to her as well.
Thank you. And also we have Marlon that joined us. Hi, Marlon. We're just discussing the basic frameworks right now of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. Marlon, some people here might not be familiar with you. Would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Marlon Marion, and I'm the Equity and Inclusion Manager for the Portland Police Bureau.
Thank you. Welcome, Marlon. And Marcia, I thought I saw your hand raised. Did you?
Yeah. Vadim, when you talk about a work group or committee, are you referring to the commission that's in the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, so that was part of the recommendation for PPB to develop. So is it being asked that we develop that, or we develop it in partnership with PPB?
Well, right now, to the best of my knowledge and based on my last conversations with PPB, nothing has been done. So I'd like to, based on at least this meeting, provide recommendations for them or requests for them to kind of get the ball rolling. My desire, and this may be a little too ambitious, but to actually produce a request for our needs and timeframes, so that we're not waiting for them to initiate these sort of things, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that there's been a pretty slow response to a lot of our recommendations. And so I think that's a good idea. I'm wondering how we can leverage, I don't know if you all have read some of the things about the Reimagine Oregon. There's a giant work group that's being, that's developing and has a lot of ask. And I wonder if this fits into any of the requests that they've made that has kind of that, a greater, more broader buy-in that could influence some of this, and also get community input, because there's a lot of really big community stakeholders that are involved in that work. And I think that a lot of the work is consistent with the truth and reconciliation model.
Thank you. And I did read that website. You might have emailed it, actually. I'm not sure, but that came across recently. So that's an interesting point. Before I jump into what individuals or groups we might need to involve in this or recommend be involved in this, is there anyone that feels strongly one way or the other about this commission being formed with various stakeholders in place versus any other kind of outreach effort? Yes, Theo?
Real quick, I just wanted to touch on, because you all mentioned leveraging, and I think we are discussing a little bit. I know this group hasn't explicitly discussed the metrics from the Amici, but if you're discussing leveraging, I think that initial metric is just a draft. So I'm sure they would want to include things in their metrics. So if you wanted to have a conversation around including something around truth and reconciliation in their metrics, I think it would put additional pressure on folks to to look that direction. Just a suggestion.
Yes, hi, Judith. You're on, okay.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me chime in. I have a long history as a mediator and doing conflict resolution. One of my concerns is that we don't set it up for failure for the community. I've had some internal conversations about what it means to tell the truth on the institution side. And I would have to say, to be quite honest, I have not seen many indications that the institutions are ready. The institution's ready to do that. And it seems to me that it would be hard to spend the love, time, and effort of the community to engage in something that we're going to hit a dead end, you know? And so I would really love to just suggest as a person that the PCCEP, I think, is an incredible position to take on that conversation very honestly with PPB about what it means to tell the truth. And then the other quick thing to think about is, I think there's a lot of different communities that have different harmful histories with police. And I don't know that one process addresses everything. You know, there's a history with BIPOC communities, the history with people who live with mental illness. There's issues with, you know, LGBTQ. So how would that, so I'm looking forward to this committee bringing their brilliance into thinking about some of those big questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Judith.
you. Thank you, Judith, for that. I really appreciate that comprehensive view of that particular situation and kind of where we find ourselves at this time.
Yeah, and I do want to read something here from some of the research I've done. So in 2016, the president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police apologized on behalf of his Association of Police Leaders. He referred to the, quote, dark side of our shared history, unquote, and the need to address multi-generational, almost inherited mistrust between many communities of color and their law enforcement agencies. The first step, and this is again in quotes, is for law enforcement and the IACP to acknowledge and apologize for the actions of the past and the role that our profession has played in society's historical mistreatment of communities of color. Communities and law enforcement need to begin a healing process, and this is a bridge to begin that dialogue. If we are brave enough to collectively deliver this message, we will build a better and safer future for our communities and our law enforcement officers. It's my hope that many other law enforcement executives will deliver the same message to their local communities, particularly those segments of their communities that lack trust and feel disenfranchised. I think if the International Association of Police Chiefs can make that statement in 2016, certainly with all that we've seen recently and since then, we can expect the same from our local police executives.
May I break in for just a moment? Can we? I mean, can we? I mean, with all that's going on right now, have we witnessed and observed the police taking responsibility for anything that's happening right now? I'm just wondering, and just kind of wanting to expand that, as Judith noted, to include, you know, communities with mental illness, other communities that are have been affected by police brutality. So I just want to make sure that we broaden this piece and also listen to the voices of our community and people that say maybe the police isn't ready to have that conversation right now. And if they're not ready to have that conversation, then what do we do?
Okay, I do agree both with you and Judith that we should have a broad umbrella with respect to this to encompass as many groups as possible that feel that there needs to be a reconciliation with actions in the past and, you know, even recent past, and whether or not individuals or institutions are ready is certainly the question. There's absolutely correct about that. Barb, I see you raising your hand as well.
I want to add the word intersectionality in there so that that's one way we can get the behavioral health issues with the BIPOC issues, as far as spotlighting that. But I think the truth and like, I don't need it, but I think the whole idea of it is really, really cool and good and the right direction. And I'm happy to help however I can.
Thank you, Barb.
Intersectionality.
So my question would be, this is Ann Brayfield. My question would be, how do folks get ready? What does that look like? I mean, I'm appreciating what's being said, and I know that, you know, in regards to some other things that might be coming along, like the oversight on the ballot, and even if the ballot was positive for a new oversight system, you know, there's a lot of people walking around saying, well, I don't know why we're bothering because it's never going to happen because, you know, the union isn't going to permit it. Well, this is sort of the same, along the same lines in a way, in my view. It's like, I can accept not being ready, but how do people get ready? I mean, how do we find our common humanity? I mean, it really begs the bigger question of, you know, where is our humanity? How can we get off of our various corners and points of view to find our commonality? Is that a place for getting started? Because I would think that not only does community feel wronged, but I suspect, and had things happen that never should have happened, but I suspect that the police may also feel the same way. So where do we find that common ground so that we can get started? So we're not coming from an us and them place, but a place of commonality. And we could, I mean, where do we get started?
That's a very good point, Ann, and I want to pin that for a little bit. Stephen has his hand raised, and I do have some comments perhaps as to how to get started with that. Stephen?
As do I.
Just to piggyback on what Ann was just saying, I can't imagine what it's like to be a Portland police officer right now. You must feel under siege, being the focus of all the international attention, not to mention criticism in all the local news outlets, and everybody's got an opinion about Portland police, and you know, and it seems like in the middle of a crisis, it's a very hard time to ask people to be willing to step up and say, I'm sorry, right? If you feel like you're under attack, that's a very hard time to get someone to dialogue with you.
That's a good point, Stephen. And on the converse of that, it might be the exact right time to say something like that, to acknowledge it. Not necessarily, I'm sorry. There's a distinction that I'm reading between apologizing and also acknowledging, and both have their merits. But you know, there's no way that anybody cannot acknowledge the historical overreaching and racism and discrimination that has happened in the past. And also, you know, most recently it's come to light as well. So there certainly is a lot of spotlight on policing in the nation and the city. But at the same time, this, you know, the theory is that this is a way of healing. So even in the most traumatic times, it might be a way to bring people together.
I hope you're right about that, and that they are open to it. That would be a great outcome. That would be one of the best outcomes I can imagine for the current unrest.
I think, thank you. I think that we do have a commitment from them to work towards this. And we're in, as I said, the second year of a 3-year process that it appears, we're not sure, that they have not done anything up to now. And I think, you know, to echo what Ann said earlier, when is it a good time? I think it's a very delicate conversation, but one that needs to happen. And if PCCEP can help move that to conversation, I think that would be very helpful for our community and provide a starting point or a communication beginning.
Thank you, Ann. And Barbara, you have your hand raised?
I remember there was an article early on, right after Floyd got killed, and there were some police in Portland that knelt at a ritual. Would it be possible to find out who they are and put out feelers to them? I mean, is that I don't even know if that's possible, but it seems to me they might be the people to have the heart for this. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, and I put that in my notes as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. As Judith noted earlier, that Mary Claire, who I don't believe is on this call right now, is the point person at the Police Bureau, and we can definitely, you know, share that. I think that's a great idea.
And Barb, your hand is raised as well.
And yes, it is. The answer, my answer to be about where to start is basically that with those who are willing, with those in the police force and around it that are willing to participate, because it's going to take a fair bit of education unless somebody's already been around that, in order to, you know, have good opinions, informed opinions. That's the word I want. So, you know, starting with the willing and then moving on is kind of what makes sense to me, which is sort of what Barbara said, but I wouldn't like look for those officers. I'd probably like ask everybody. And then the whole bridge thing early on and the attention we were getting early on was actually kind of cool. But nobody has pushed back, or the media just isn't interested in the long history of this town and the police and the racism, because it's thought of as this, you know, white town in the Pacific Northwest, and nobody notices. You know, that's it for right now.
All right, thanks, Barb. And Ann Brayfield, to your question about how this would get started, it really is, the onus is upon the Police Bureau. I know we're having discussions about what our asks are and requests and how to move forward, but you know, it really is the starting point to have the Police Bureau acknowledge the history of this, to listen to leaders from around Portland about their experiences and their perceptions, and moving forward from there. So we have, of course, received assurances that that is something that the PPB wants to pursue. And basically, I think we just want to keep the ball rolling to make sure that those things that they want to pursue are brought to fruition earlier rather than later, especially in these times when we need a lot of healing.
So I have a further question about that. I'm understanding that Mary Claire is doing research, quote unquote, and that it's in her ballpark, but that's kind of an institutional place in some ways. What's the relationship with Robert King? Is he someone who would be sensitive to this and sensitive to, and especially since the mayor was at one time quite interested in this. I mean, he's a person who I've seen dig in on some of these kinds of things in the community. And I'm just wondering, just as a human, if he might be someone that we might reach out to. I don't know, because I think there's the individuals and then there's the institution. So the other thing I'm wondering about is, where does the getting this moving fit in with a settlement agreement, or is this totally apart from the settlement agreement?
Anna, did you want to say something?
That's a really great question. Both, you know, the question of talking to Robert King, I think I think of him as well. But also, is this a part of the settlement agreement? I know that Jared is on the call. I'm wondering if Jared might want to comment on that.
Sure, I can comment. You know, what PCCEP decides to do with respect to the Bureau's community engagement plan, I think is fairly up to you guys to decide. This truth and reconciliation model was part of it, and I would encourage you to, you know, continue to follow up on the things you recommended be in the community engagement plan, including this. How you envision it, or what support you provide or guidance you provide, or how your role in it, I don't think is something that's fairly within the settlement agreement. You guys are tasked with helping the city develop and refine a community engagement plan. That is the city's obligation to do, and it's their obligation to do that with your input. So those are the things that I would be assessing with respect to compliance in this issue. Primarily, I want to see that you all are supported in what you decide to spend your time on, including perhaps the truth and reconciliation model.
Thank you, Jared. I didn't hear that last part of what you said.
Yeah, it was all breaking up. I didn't either.
Sorry, I got a neighbor who's mowing. What I said is, you know, what I'm looking for is that the city supports you in what you decide is important for a community engagement plan. So with respect to the truth and reconciliation model, if you guys want to push that, and you already have, with respect to getting it in the community engagement plan, but following up and executing on that idea, you know, I'm going to be evaluating the city's support of your effort. And that's what I would deem a compliance issue for Section 9.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that clarity.
So maybe that's a little leverage.
I do think we have leverage, but to cycle back to an earlier discussion and leverage in particular, Marcia mentioned that perhaps Reimagine Oregon would be a good partner to involve in this, and whether in the committee or otherwise. And I just want to reach out to everybody here, Marcia, Marlon, as well as the other people involved. What other organizations do you think that we need to have buy-in at an earlier stage in order to plan for this? Any other recommendations?
Vadim, I'm sending the link to Reimagine Oregon. It's really actually, I don't know that I can call it an organ, well, it says org, but it is a coalition essentially with a ton of organizations that are participating. And I would almost look at who's participating in that work and include those different organizations. So if you didn't want to reach out to Reimagine Oregon specifically, I know that like PALF is involved, Unite Oregon, Urban League. So some of the big policy pushers, especially in BIPOC communities, I think definitely should be involved. But I'm pulling up this, they have a whole section on police divestment, and a whole host of different things. I'm trying to find who might be on here, and that might kind of be a cheat sheet for us to just pull out different organizations that are already really doing this, kind of pushing for this work.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Just 1 second while I do some research myself.
I just want to make sure, like I agree with what Marcia suggested. I can think of some organizations, but they're culturally specific organizations. And I agree with Judith had mentioned before, there's so many communities. So I definitely feel like communities should be informing this work. And I feel like whatever kind of research we're doing, we should be getting the community. When this was first being put into the community engagement plan, I was reviewing it. And I put some fillers out within my own personal community, and there seemed to be not an interest in having a truth and reconciliation. As my community believed they already know the truth. In fact, they just want the Bureau to know the truth. And so I feel like whatever we decide to do moving forward with this, the community should be involved from the very beginning all the way to the end. And if we can, so I'm not exactly sure where Mary Claire is in the research. I can check in with her on that, but I feel like part of that research is engaging the community as well. Like that has to be part of the research as well.
Exactly. I agree. Thank you, Marlon.
I just want to acknowledge, hi, Deanna, welcome to our meeting. We're talking about the truth and reconciliation model, and at this point in time, who to get involved in sort of laying the groundwork for the process. Okay. And Marcia, I should have asked this much earlier in this, but can we partner with the Racial Equity Subcommittee in some of this work, especially the outreach and so on?
Yeah, I would love that. Our next meeting is going to be on the 20th, and we are going to take most of that time to do a Say Her Name listening forum. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to fit that in unless there is a quick tidbit of it, but we can connect maybe offline and figure out how to do that. But I'd love to help as much as I can.
Thank you. I know you're busy. I know you have a lot of things going on, but once this starts going, we want to make sure that we have buy-in from as many people as possible, and not buy-in, but that's a bad word. Just input. We don't want this to be, specific to any particular or miss any particular group or organization or voice. I want to admit that I don't know who the best people to get involved would be, so I have to rely on others. So thank you for agreeing to help on that.
No problem.
And so I do think it's pretty necessary to have a committee where people with experience, people with knowledge, people who have been working on this for quite an amount of time can start the ball rolling and have these conversations with executives within PPB. What do y'all think about giving PPB or requesting, I guess, PPB have 1 month in which to begin formulating that committee, doing outreach, getting people on board. 30 days is not a lot of time, but I think asking for movement on this earlier rather than later would kind of be beneficial. What do y'all think about 30 days to begin formulating the committee?
Is that your understanding that their formulation of the committee would be Portland Police Bureau people and community members? Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm kind of open to right now. I think there would need to be some police members on there just in order to be able to, once again, I think this only has force if PPB is involved from the beginning, but it needs input from the community as well. So if this is a community telling PPB how to react to the community, I think it would lose some of its power. So I don't want to foreclose the chief or whomever might want to be on that committee. But the models that I've read really say that this has power when it comes from within the police bureaus, recognizing that they need to acknowledge and recognizing that they need that change. So that's that's kind of my viewpoint, although that take it with a grain of salt.
Well, I hear what you're saying. However, I do also want to give space to what we've heard today, that I believe that PPB should be involved, but I think that it's critical that community members are involved just as well, and that it is something that we build together. I think that what Jared said is that is part of their community engagement plan, or that is the thought that we could kind of push them to add that to Truth and Reconciliation to their community engagement plan, and that is in part that relates to the settlement agreement. So I think that it is very important for everyone to be at the table, but you know, with the notion of are the officers, is the Portland Police Bureau willing or wanting to have that conversation? It kind of, we just need to push them to have that, and to have all the people that we can be at that meeting with them.
Good point, Ann. I totally agree with you. Judith has been waiting to say something for a little bit. Judith?
Thanks, Vadim. I'm wondering, for right now with what's going on, it could appear tone deaf for the police to make this suggestion to put this commission together in the midst of the dispute. I think PCCEP is in a situation that may be more trusted by the community. It would be really great to have PCCEP maybe convene some sessions to hear from the community how interested they are in this kind of a process, and what they think it would entail, what they are hoping the outcomes would be. And that meanwhile, some conversation has to be going on amongst police to see what is it and Vadim, you've read all the studies, like how will we know when the police are ready to honestly take this conversation on? And I think you are going to have to involve the attorneys too. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Judith. Allison, you have your hand raised as well, I believe. You might be on mute, Allison. Allison, I think okay, there we go.
Yeah, it just takes a minute. I agree about the tone deafness to right in this moment. And I don't know Mary or Marie Claire. Is she with Portland Police?
Yes, she's their kind of inspector general, so she's within the police bureau, but she's also supposed to make sure that they're, you know, doing things correctly in a way.
So I just think asking her, where are you at? Just.
I agree. She usually attends these meetings, so I was hoping that she would be here in order to discuss some of this, but I'll cycle back with her. Ann and I will cycle back, maybe Marcia, if she's interested as well, be on that call, and just to get a sense of some of the questions that we were going to ask today. What, if any, there have been any developments?
Yeah, I will say that I agree a lot with, I mean, just that we have to be very sensitive to intersectionality. And I do not in any way minimize the importance of the need for truth and reconciliation with the police and mentally ill. But as a white person right now, I would feel very uncomfortable saying, hey, pay attention to me and my stuff. it doesn't feel right. Again, it just doesn't feel right. And I'm not saying we're second fiddle. I'm just saying this moment in time is not our moment, in my opinion. I think we need to be looking at people of color and these problems first that they're experiencing. I don't want it. It's too easy to look like it's white entitlement, and I don't even look like I have disabilities. So, you know, invisible disability white person is not at time.
Mm-hmm. And I see people nodding their heads as well. I think there's a lot to consider, and we don't want to dilute any particular message. You know, that's the kind of balancing act there. So that's, you know, really, I'm not the person to, you know, ascertain what the right way to go for that is. But I hope that, you know, once we have some people in place in the committee, and perhaps, as Judith mentioned, outreach and feedback from a greater community, we'll have kind of, you know, a path going forward. But I do hope the police bureau is in line and has their own thoughts about how it needs to happen, because that would have a little bit more. Yeah, the reconciliation is not, you know, reconciliation with the police. It's sort of the police's reconciliation with the community. So.
And yeah, I wanted to agree, and then also piggyback on what Allison said. It gets to the issue that Judith brought up initially about, is this the time for this issue? And I think moving forward, and in the efforts of time, I'm wondering if what we might do is reach out to our connection, Mary Claire and others at the Police Bureau, and see where they are in their path. And then at our next meeting, and maybe work with others to kind of come up with, I like the idea of the listening sessions to find out what the community really wants us to be doing at this time relative to this issue.
Thank you, Ann. And Barb, quickly, we have a few minutes left. I wanted to cover one more topic real quick, but go ahead.
I'm pushing back publicly. This group has 2 missions from the settlement agreement. The majority of it is around people with mental health issues. We've sat back. That's here in this group, and that's one of the reasons why I'm saying intersectionality is a way in. Yes, answers are needed from Mary Claire and all, and then things will seem straighter. But yeah, I just need to push back on that.
No, and I acknowledge, Barb, and I heard what you said during the steering committee meeting, and I agree to a large extent with what you're saying. There needs to be a broad addressing of various concerns and communities that have been disparately treated, of which mental health community has certainly been part of that, and is, you know, the basis for the settlement with the city, and then the Amici are involved as well. So it's a very broad question. I don't have any answers right now. I'm trying to kind of piece different things together and find a way to move forward, which was really the basis for this meeting. So I do appreciate everyone's input on that, because I think it's brought to light several important facts we have to consider, you know, not only what this needs to address, but also the people that need to be involved and the voices that need to be heard.
And I want to just make a comment as well. I hear, Barb, what you're saying, and at this time we are holding all voices, but Black Lives Matter is a movement, and we are in total support of that, and we want to elevate the voices of Black and Brown people today. And so I just want to stop with that. I think, Vadim, considering time, I think we're going to, unless you want to extend our meeting, we're going to have to talk about our second item at our next meeting.
I agree. We don't have Mary Claire on here, so that second item is not something we can address at this point anyways. It was just the second item for those that have not read the agenda or may not be as familiar with it is the recommendation on officer peer intervention programs. So in June, the Settlement Agreement and Policy Committee proposed a recommendation that the city develop a more robust program on officer peer intervention. And Barb, I just want to shout out to you. I know that some people have a disagreement on the term peer, but that's the technical term for it. But it's that officers intervene when they see something happening that is wrong. And there is a blurb in one of the police policies about that, but both the COCOL, the people involved in the settlement agreement, as well as PCCEP believe that it needs to be more robust, that officers are trained and understand that if they see something wrong, they should report it and speak to that individual and raise it up so it doesn't happen again, just as with George Floyd, how those other police officers observed but didn't step in. We want to make sure that PPB doesn't, ever make that same mistake. So, but basically that was just going to be a discussion with PPB as to what, if anything, has been going on with that. We'll ask them to provide input on that during our next full meeting. They're supposed to provide input on recommendations, and so maybe they can just chime in as to what, if anything, has occurred since the recommendation was made. So let me just sum up a little bit here. So the next steps are to reach out to the PPB and just understand what their process has been up until now. Move forward with having a time-appropriate community organization that will further build upon a committee that will build upon the Truth and Reconciliation model with the Portland Police Bureau. Reach out to organizations and have listening sessions in which perhaps we can get some more insight and development on some of the issues that we discussed in a very quick manner today. We only had 1 hour to discuss something that researchers have been working on for years. So that's our first step. We'll discuss with PPB and provide input on timeframes in which to have this moving, and also pair with the Racial Equity Subcommittee in order to make sure that we have everybody on board and all voices heard. Does that sound good to everybody?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you very much for all your input. Mr. Handelman, you're usually more vocal in this. I just want to give you space in case you want to say anything before we conclude this meeting.
Well, I appreciate it, but I'm just monitoring today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Handelman.
Can I just add really quick, Vadim? I'd love to connect at some point, but I want to invite you to just have an announcement at the Racial Equity Committee. And for those of you who haven't attended or are interested in attending, we are hosting Kendra James's mother in our forum. So she'll be talking about her experience having her daughter shot by Portland police back in 2003. And that's next Thursday at 5:30.
Thank you, Marcia.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for sharing that, Marcia.
And that's going to be on the PCCEP website. So if anybody needs Zoom information for that, just go to the website and we'll have it posted. Is it posted already, Marcia, or will it be posted?
I'm getting ready to send the flyer to Claudia and we'll post it. And then I will update the agenda to get that link out. But we'll have that out there.
Okay, so it'll be on the webpage. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody, have a good afternoon. I appreciate you coming here and hope to see you next month as well, and the rest of our PCCEP meetings and Marcia's meeting as well. Y'all take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.